making our way through the last day of NAILBA Engage, how could we not have a conversation with the largest brokerage general agency as part of NAILBA? I would say probably in the United States, where the market goes, where Crump Life Insurance Services goes, the market follows. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Joining us today is Rob Carney, president of Crump Life Insurance Services. Rob, am I correct on that? Where the market, where Crump goes, the market follows. Do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate the kind introduction, and thanks, Dan. It's great to be here with you and be part of this great program. I like to think we make an impact in the market, and certainly try to be a leader in lots of aspects, which we'll probably talk about today.
Absolutely, and let's jump right into that. Let's just talk a little bit about. I've talked with a lot of our carrier partners, many different principals from brokerage general agencies, our service and tech providers. Everyone's had an interesting story about 2020, but I think it's important to tell that story because we don't want to lose momentum around some of the pivots we made. And I say this very carefully and very sensitive to, the world going through a pandemic, but there has been positive that have come out of it. Where there is crisis, there is opportunity. So just a little bit inside of Crump. How did 2020 work out? Where did you guys pivot? Any success stories that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll start with just kind of taking a step back. We're a large distribution company and go to market in a variety of ways, right? So we've got our traditional independent brokerage, which is more wholesale facing, and we've got a number of institutional businesses where we can provide point of sale, retail, business process outsourcing, et cetera. And then we've got some other solutions in the marketplace like TELUS Brokerage Connections, which serves many of the best BGAs in the marketplace and has demonstrated real growth in the marketplace. And then we have RiskWriter, which is a solution that we built internally that we now take to carriers. So we have a pretty large, diverse company. And so it was a big deal as we shift to this virtual environment. It was a pretty significant undertaking, but I'm really proud of how the team pivoted and how we, number one, set up our employees to be safe and operate effectively, and number two, be positioned to help our agents. We went from somewhere in the neighborhood of 15% of our over 1,000 employees working remotely to 98, 99% virtually overnight, and it's really been a significant change. But I think we really learned about the power of virtual and how effective we can be in this environment. And while it's still a relationship business and we want to get our salespeople out face to face to help support business development efforts, we've had a tremendous amount of success in this environment in which we find ourselves. So so there's the shift internally and then the shift externally about how do we help our advisors and producers become comfortable. So it was the move from paper to electronic. It was leveraging tools like eApp, drop ticket, e-policy delivery, helping them understand, and we promoted and trained on the use of a lot of the tools that are out there, whether it's tools like we would use every day today in terms of Zoom or WebEx or Teams, and really leverage all the capabilities from a digital perspective that a lot of them existed, but we just hadn't really used them.
Sure. Rob, I think it's important to note that you've always been supportive of NAILBA. When I came in, we had chatted. Crump has always been supportive of NAILBA and independent distribution. And even when I asked you to come on and be a part of NAILBA Engage, you were quick to point out that Crump's success is really as a result of the people you have around you, the entire Crump team. That as a leadership, I should say a student in leadership, as I always try to be, that screams to me culture. What's the culture like inside, NAILBA's largest broker general agency and the largest broker general agency in the United States?
Yeah, well, culture is really important to us. And before I jump into Crump's culture, I'll say, thanks to you for your leadership and helping all of us in the brokerage community and all the great things at NAILBA and the leaders within the board and other folks who contribute to NAILBA. We're doing a lot of great things together, and I think that's really important that we continue to work together to address the needs of the marketplace. From a Crump culture perspective, it was really important, and it's important to us pre-pandemic, and as we shift virtually, our culture really helped us with that transition. And the way we think about what we do is, there's lots of people who impact how we deliver for our clients. And so we use the term One Crump a lot internally. It's more of an internal term than an external term, but we talk about all being in sales and service. So whether, it's obvious if you're a frontline salesperson, but whether you're an underwriter, a case manager, a case designer, or even in IT, finance, or some of the other functions, you're all part of the team that helps us deliver every day. So internally, there's some themes that we focus on repeatedly and early and often, as I say, with, being customer focused, being responsive, being proactive in terms of whatever items you need to take care of as part of this team, the teamwork aspect. So if someone comes to you and it's not your job per se, you help them get it resolved and then work with your partner on how do we make sure we have the right communications after the fact. Being a learning organization, which is huge and particularly important this past year. Measuring results is important, and I'll say more about that in a minute. And the last thing we emphasize a lot is having fun. I think I love what I do. I love the company I work for, and I love the impact we all make on the communities we serve. And if you don't wake up every day liking what you do, energized about what you do, you're probably in the wrong job. And so that's really something we talk a lot about internally.
It's a great response, actually, Robert. It reminds me of Walter Elias Disney, where when they created Disney World, the first thing was we have to keep the park clean. So I don't care if you're an EVP, SVP, or a member of the cast, your first role is pick up garbage, because we will always keep it clean. And in this space that we're in, if we can't sell, then we're never going to close the gaps that are out there.
Right, and any of us or none of us rather are too good to pick up garbage. So that's a great example. I've heard a lot of those service Disney style training programs, and they're outstanding.
Yeah. So today is day 8 of NAILBA Engage. We dedicated 2 days around innovation because I got tired of going to industry events, candidly, and hearing the same word: disruption. Yeah, well, the disruption arrived, and now it's time to innovate, right? It used to be a buzzword at many different junkets that we'd all go to. Now you either you have to innovate to survive. So as president of Crump, what does the word innovate mean to you? What innovation mean to you? How does that land on you?
Well, it's critically important. I mentioned, in the culture discussion around being a learning organization, we've got a history of innovation at Crump, and I joined nearly 17 years ago, and we've had to continue to learn, grow, evolve continuously over the time I've been here, and certainly before I was here. And a couple of examples I'd give is, we were pretty early to focus on the institutional space and support both traditional producers, but also non-traditional producers, that financial advisors that have become more and more important in the distribution network. We looked at where we were operating and where we were working, and we saw an opportunity to launch TELUS, and that's now a great IMO in the business. There's we have tremendous membership. They've done great things. They continue to drive growth both individually as BGAs by leveraging the resources we have, and collectively as a unit, and really making a great impact. And it was, again, an opportunity we saw. And I talked about all of our channels, but we're getting the right customers in the right channels and providing the right support model that aligns with our strategy. And so that's another great example. And Risk Radar would be a third, where we had an internal efficiency challenge around the volume of informals, and all of us have an issue with placement rates with informals, and we built a capability to make us more efficient. And we had enough scale to really be a test bed for industry solutions. And ultimately, carriers came to us and said, hey, we want to buy that service from you. And that's how we evolved it into a business. So the constant change and thought is critical. And we know change isn't done. It's a continual part of what we do. I think as an industry, we have to continue to challenge ourselves about the agent and consumer experience, and how do we do business when, where, and how they want to do it, not how we've traditionally defined it. And I would really say there's kind of 4 buckets as I think about innovation. It's evolution versus revolution, and we need both, right? We need to challenge the status quo and not just do things because we've done it for years, but we've also started internally asking a very simple question around what if, and what if we didn't need this step in the process, or what if we could fundamentally redesign how we're going to do something. And it just creates a bigger thinking that serves us well as we do our planning.
Well, bigger thinking is needed for our industry, right? So, as I've said since arriving at NAILBA, sacred cows make the best hamburger. So
Right on. Yeah.
there's no problem asking why are we doing the same process over and getting the same results. And Rob, you mentioned TELUS. I'd be remiss if I didn't do my role as CEO of NAILBA. We've actually had a few member agencies from TELUS join NAILBA, either as first-time members or returning to NAILBA. So thank you to the members of TELUS who have given NAILBA a second first impression.
Got it.
Let's have a little fun, Rob. So given your position, given Crump, I'm just going to throw a couple of different items out there around innovation. You could answer them from the external view, right, about what observations you have around the industry, or you could answer them from the internal view of what Crump is doing. So let's just jump into them one by one. We've seen a big pivot over the past 18 months around different areas of technology. A lot of different third-party providers. Some of these groups are getting together, merging themselves together. Some of them are finding new solutions. What's your take on just some of the industry technology that's developing?
Yeah, so I think all that's great in terms of pushing us forward as an industry. You mentioned earlier about some of the positives of the pandemic, and I certainly wish we didn't have to go through a pandemic to get here, but we absolutely talk about the pandemic being a catalyst for change. And for Crump, we've invested in our platform for years, and it was less about new tools. It was more about the expanded utilization of the tools we already had. Even if you think about things as simple as, the Teams or WebEx or the various video calls, we had these tools a year ago, but certainly I'll speak for myself. I never used them, right? Even though they're great ways to stay connected with folks without flying across the country or doing other ways to connect. But when you think about, from a Crump perspective, we relaunched our Crump Transaction Center in 2019, and it's a digital hub for us that we built upon kind of the legacy. Everyone thinks about these as term drop ticket, but it's much bigger than that. It's around how do we support life, annuities, long-term care, disability. How do we provide flexibility in terms of how you use the digital tools? Some want to do a drop ticket, some want to fill out an e-app, others want to upload paper, right, and leverage the paper to go into a digital process. And we've built all those capabilities, integrate with best in breed tools with the folks you mentioned, a lot of great technology companies out there. How do we integrate that in to have a single experience for our producers, and then integrate with the carriers, right? There's lots of good stuff happening at the carriers, but again, we want to integrate it so that there's a single front end and a single experience to our advisors. So it's awesome. I mean, we've like I said, a lot of these things existed, but the utilization is way up, which I think is a real positive. I think that's here to stay.
Well, we've been pushing metrics. Our mutual colleague, David Live's been over at iPipeline. I'm completely stealing his line. He said, Dan, if it could be measured, it could be improved, right? So we sit here at NAILBA and say, how do we measure NAILBA Engage success? Well, there's 1,800 registrants, which is higher than NAILBA's ever had.
That's great. Congratulations.
It's all wins, right? But I always joke, you can't be as outspoken as I am without backing it up with metrics, right? So 100 plus hours of programming, 140 plus speakers, you being one of them. It's leading us down a path that some innovation's here to stay. Now, I'm setting you up here, Rob. Product innovation, right? Earlier today, I talked with another group about proprietary products. We're seeing our carrier partners roll out all different kinds of products, tons of focus in IUL. What are you seeing from the Crump point of view, either internally, externally, about just how the products that hopefully we no longer made difficult to sell are evolving?
Right. So you touched on an important part about difficulty of selling. But before I go there,
we could jump in when we get to the distribution part. We'll jump in.
Well, yeah. Well, either way. But the when I think about when I think about the pressures on carriers in today's kind of macroeconomic environment, right? There's incredibly low interest rates. I came from a carrier before I got into the distribution side of the house, and that's an important part of their profitability. So I think we're going to continue to see evolution of product designs based on their return requirements and how they deploy capital. So, that's not a big surprise to me. I think we got to continue to push the envelope collectively, to your point around the ease of how you buy products. So, we need to listen to clients about what, when, and where, and how they want to buy things. And we can't always think about our traditional processes. And in the old days, it was, we can do simplified underwriting. but it costs a lot to get that. And that's not a trade-off consumers want to make. So how do we leverage the tools that are available today? And a lot of carriers are making a lot of great progress on that in partnership with distribution to have solutions that are easier for clients to obtain insurance, many less challenges along the process, and a shorter cycle time. I think we have to continue to challenge ourselves and use those what if kinds of questions to continue to improve there.
You mentioned about some of the, in your answer there, some of the carrier innovation, the overall distribution innovation. If you don't mind, because you touched on the carrier, let me jump to the last point I have in this section that NAILBA has been focused on, and you alluded to it earlier as far as what Crump is doing, but the advisor engagement, right? The advisor engagement it will look different now than it ever has in the past. And in the past, it could be the traditional, let's meet for lunch, let's get together and play around, business as usual. Now we're forced to innovate to survive. So how has Crump, specifically Crump, repositioned the advisor engagement so we could help close the gap on uninsured and underinsured?
Yeah, great question. So as I said earlier, it's still a relationship business, and I don't think face-to-face is going away. Which you hear some circles that it's going to go away. I don't believe in that. I think it's going to where it makes sense, we're going to continue to have face-to-face engagement. But having said that, we need advisors to accept the virtual environment that it's here to stay, right? It's the world in which we're now living. It's our new normal, and we need advisors to embrace the programs, build their skill set in that regard, build muscle, if you will, to make sure that they do know how to use the tools and help address the coverage gap, to your point. And that includes, a range of market segments, everywhere from how do you support high-end clients. Some of those high-end segments pivoted to virtual pretty effectively and were some of the most successful parts of our organization last year. And conversely, on the other extreme, we have to work together to say, how do we address underserved markets? And you hear about how the coverage gap is even more significant in certain market segments. So those are things I think we need to do together. Now, the other thing I'd say is, how do you leverage other tools that we traditionally haven't done in insurance very effectively? Leveraging social media to get your messages out and make connections. Think about other collaboration tools in terms of how you work and how you create solutions and with a producer in partnership with their BGA. So those are all the things from an experience. We want to make sure that we have a holistic view supporting advisors, helping them learn, train, be comfortable with these tools, and ultimately provide the right solutions for their clients.
Let's pivot a little bit here, Rob. What keeps you up at night, right? As it relates to leading Crump, there are a lot of challenges and opportunities in front of us, right? But there are a lot of threats too. So not just getting back on our feet this year and accepting what the new normal is, and that's going to be an evolving definition, but what's keeping you up at night? What do you think some challenges in the industry are that maybe you could use this interview to share with our carrier friends, our other distributor leaders, on how we can come together and face some serious challenges?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is, if I think about challenges and then more importantly, the opportunities that come from it, kind of two primary challenges, right? One is the interest rates that I talked about. It's lower for longer. We all believe that now. There's no one, magically thinking it's going to, radically increase over the next couple of years. And so that's going to create a continued shift from carriers in terms of products, areas of focus, et cetera. And we're going to have big strategic shifts. We've seen a number of them recently with announcements of divestitures of large business units, combinations of business units, et cetera. And all that's manageable, right? We're in a spot within brokerage where we can understand those things and pivot. We can always manage to a known environment. The uncertainty around the regulatory environment is something that I think a lot about. No one disagrees with the notion of best interest. And we are absolutely, our whole company has a culture of doing business the right way and compliance controls and being a good counterparty to our institutional business partners. And once we know the direction of the regulation, we can absolutely manage to it. But that's been kind of a moving target over the last few years. So that's one that I think a lot about. But when you think about opportunities, and with all this macroeconomic and environmental and shifts and all these things going on, the future's now, right? I mean, we can't talk about unprecedented times. We can't talk about reasons why we're not being effective at serving our clients. this is our new normal. And we've got to figure out a way as a distributor and as partners with our carriers and partners with our advisors about how do we sell in today's environment. And my expectation is we're going to have growth across all product lines in 2021. And there's going to be disruption, and some of it's going to be headwinds, and some of it's going to be tailwinds. But these disruptions are clearly going to create opportunity. And we all need to work together to figure out how do we operate effectively and positively within that. We're seeing some great trends in a number of our sales channels, which I'm excited about our future.
Rob, I'll tee this last question up the same way I did on day 7 of NAILBA Engaging. It was with our mutual friends and colleagues over at Ash Brokerage and AIMCOR. And I said to Tim, you mentioned all this innovation and use of technology. We are recording everything now, right? So it's an on-demand world. In fact, when we introduced NAILBA Engage, we said it's Netflix meets Zoom, right? Micro learning at its finest. So looking through the crystal ball as both a longtime industry professional, but also the leader of Crump, what do you see in the crystal ball over the next 5 or 10 years? Are you going to be as bold to say that certain automated underwriting will be at a much higher level? There'll be more efficiency around case management. Where do you want to go with this? Since we're going to record it and play it forever.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm sure Tim nailed his prediction. So look, what I would say is the pace of change, right? We've all talked about electronic capabilities for as long as I've been in the business, right? And I think we're really seeing it happen in the last 12 to 18 to 24 months. And it certainly was the catalyst with the pandemic that we talked about. So I think that's a huge benefit for our industry. And I think we're going to continue to see insurtech companies and others spurring greater innovation that we can partner with to improve the delivery of insurance to our producers and their clients. So I don't think that's a very bold prediction to say that's going to get better. It's going to continue to get better, and those gains we're going to keep. As we think about Crump, we're absolutely thinking about kind of omni-channel solutions in terms of having a holistic view of the client and flexibility and when, where, and how they want to do business with us. And so I think those things integrated with the pieces you mentioned, Dan, at the carriers, is absolutely going to happen. And it's incumbent upon all of us to push the envelope to create that disruption. We look at Crump as we're trying to drive disruption because I think it's good for our industry. People worry about the insurtech firms. I welcome them. They're challenging us to think differently, think smarter, think better in terms of service models. So I think that's a positive. The other thing that I say for us, which is a little unique to Crump, is we're owned by Truist Financial Corporation, which is a significant financial institution. And one of their 3 publicly reported segments is Truist Insurance Holdings, right? So insurance is not a hobby for us. It's a meaningful part of our business. And Truist has made it very clear, both privately and publicly, that they're going to continue to invest in insurance and in our platform. So, we think about the pace of change. We're going to continue to invest in our platform, which supports all of the channels that Crump supports. And, it's great to work for a company that wants to invest for growth. I've worked for companies that want to shrink, and I've worked for companies that want to grow. And I can tell you it's a lot more fun working with those that want to grow. So, I think, the technology piece is important, but the technology by itself doesn't serve clients. It's the people, the process, and the overall culture that we talked about that helps us really deliver the whole solution to our clients. So I think there's good things ahead. And I'm like I said, I'm excited about our future. I think I'm excited about our industry, and I hope others are as well. There's lots of opportunity out there for Crump and all of the distributors that listen to this call. There's a huge coverage gap, and we all need to work together to help close it.
Rob, I'm going to hit you with one curveball, but I know you could stand in the box and take a good swing at it. Give me your reaction when I say the word Amazon. You're talking about disruption and how it could change and how it could all bring the rising tide, right? Competition. Does an example like that change your approach to how you lead Crump? Or does Crump look at that and say, bring it? Or does Crump look at that and say, we need to prepare for it?
I'd say bring it. I mean, the first word that popped in my head when you said Amazon was game changing, right? They fundamentally changed the value prop for clients. And that's an amazing company. They've done incredible things. And I think we all are impressed. You can press your button on a Sunday night and Monday morning, the truck pulls up and delivers whatever you've ordered. And I think we need to think about insurance and the delivery of protection and retirement products in the same vein, how do we really step outside the box and really fundamentally change our thinking about how we deliver these solutions? So I think it's a great example, and it doesn't scare us. For me, it excites us about what we can do as a company and as an industry.
I've been saying since I've my 3 short years in this industry, we have to make this product an experience, not just a transaction. If it's just a transaction, people go away. They go on with their lives. Rob Carney, president of Crump Life Insurance Services, thanks so much for your support of NAILBA, your support of independent distribution, and candidly, your leadership in our industry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all you and NAILBA do for us. So thanks so much. Thanks for having me too. It's been a great day.
Absolutely.